Welcome to the Personal Podcast, the podcast where we get to meet the real person behind the professional. I'm delighted to be joined today by poet Michael Lewis. Michael has written poetry books such as Dirt, Ink and Fog, which I have in front of me here, which are all wonderful. So Michael, at age 16, you were diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder. Did this come as a surprise?
No. At 14, I was prescribed antidepressants from a general practitioner. Obviously, there was something not right. I also pretty much doubt I needed that medication at the time. And towards becoming acutely ill in terms of bipolar disorder, which is obviously a lot more serious or a lot more impactful. It's said that I've got a lot of insight into my condition anyway. So things like paranoia and delusions, I managed to sort of have insight and know that what was going on in my head wasn't particularly tickety-boo.
Okay.
And even the first episode at 16, when I was acutely ill, which means at your worst, I knew then that something wasn't right. So no, it wasn't a surprise.
Okay, can you describe for people that don't understand the condition, myself included, kind of what it actually is and how it affects you?
Yeah, it's basically high and low levels of energy or normal energy is the bipolar, but it's a lot more serious. There's three types. There's basically, if you're psychotic, you're either bipolar or schizophrenic or a combination of both. Those combination of both will sit with either bipolar affective disorder, which is bipolar and psychosis, or schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of bipolar and schizophrenia, which is basically a bit more like psychosis on steroids plus bipolar, if that makes sense. So you can't take an X-ray or you can't take blood, but there's a very good chance that I either have bipolar affective disorder or schizoaffective disorder. So we're not quite sure.
Okay.
It's not often I'm acutely ill. You need to be at your worst for them to look at your symptoms, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, high and low mood, and then the psychotic element would be hallucinations, which don't happen to me, paranoia, which I experience most days, and delusions. They don't come often. They come pretty much when I'm acutely ill. That's the psychotic. Yeah, so being agitated, sleeplessness, insomnia, things like that.
Oh, goodness. And paranoia, can you describe that?
Yeah, I constantly think people are discussing me and laughing at me. It's documented, well, a novelist and poet, William Burroughs, described paranoia as knowing a little bit about something. So that's not a nice statement. Anything could be happening, you know. Someone could be saying something nice about you, but it's knowing a little bit about something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So people could be discussing about you, but they could be just saying they like your shoes or...
Yeah, but you would perceive it as something negative.
Negative, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because it's one of those words that's overused, and I think the true meaning of it's being taken away. It's overused by people, saying maybe that it's often used in conjunction with alcohol. I'm paranoid about what I did last night, and yeah, but I guess that's nothing.
A lot of that's anxiety. Would be more of it. However, if I don't drink nearly as much as I used to.
Okay.
However, probably more now when I do drink because my tolerance is low. I get what I call the horrors, which is anxiety, but probably a lot because of my condition. It's, again,
amplified.
Amplified, yeah.
Next level. And how does the condition affect you on a day-to-day basis?
It can be hell, to tell you the truth. It's the main thing it affects outside of me is my relationships with. I know some great people, friends, lovers, family. My relationships with those people is a struggle quite often. It would be a lot worse if I didn't have the insight, I think. And the fact that I'm quite a good friend myself. I'm still in contact with pretty much everyone. But the workplace is probably the hardest.
Okay.
Only recently, the job that I'm currently doing alongside poetry, I thought I was doing the worst job, and anyway, it turns out I'm doing a pretty good job. So, yes, things like that. You think people want you out, and sometimes they do. But yeah, it's not a nice thing to go through.
It doesn't sound it. I mean, how do you deal with that? You know, because maybe over the years you've accepted, maybe I'm just making it a bigger deal than it is in terms of the paranoia. Do you try and reassure yourself? Do you kind of speak to your employer and say, look, I need constant reassurance here?
Doing this job, no, 'cause it's not a stressful job. I've always worked in hospitality, and the older you get in hospitality, more often than not, the younger your colleagues get, especially when you work front of house. And young people to work with, not by any of their own fault, tend not to be as nice as older people, I find. Probably because they haven't experienced as much, or when, ever been bereaved or through grief, know, and they haven't developed. I'm probably similar myself when I was of a certain age. But yeah, I think not everyone, but if ever you're going to become more empathetic, you're going to do it as you get older,
Definitely.
I guess. Yeah. So yeah, and obviously the fast-paced and the stress isn't there either. So the worst thing, I'm a security guard now, the worst thing that can happen to me is that I can get a clip, or, well, it could be a lot worse, actually, in terms of violence, but it's not as fast-paced.
Okay.
And it's not as... You work for better people, and it's probably not a good thing to admit, but I like working with predominantly men and predominantly people a similar age to myself, if I can.
Okay. And how has it helped you since you got your diagnosis? I know obviously it's a long time ago now.
Well, first and foremost, the medication. A lot of my peers around adolescence broke the back to tell me how much I'd changed. I was really antisocial as a teenager. I try, even now I'm 37, and if I see someone from school, I try my best to not approach them, because the school me, like probably a lot of people my age, but even at 18, the me at school wasn't a reflection of me after the medication, basically, and the help. So yeah, medication predominantly. I'd say initially it was great. It was a weight off. But your diagnosis can change quite often, and you just get the hang of one. And me personally, maybe it's the creative in me, but I tend to obsess over something, and you tend to, you've just got the hang of obsessing over one condition, and then you're not taking blood or an X-ray, so you get a new condition, and it's something you obsess over. I certainly haven't been diagnosed with this one, but they're starting to think I might be autistic as well now, which
Okay.
and they might as well throw the book at me. My sister said I had ADHD the other day, which I don't think I have.
Yeah. I think I've got that, but do you think it helps kind of getting a diagnosis? I know people like to put labels on things these days. Do you think that helps?
Once upon a time, yeah, when it wasn't as common. Yes, I did, because you could arm yourself with information. I think illegal substances have revved the increase in mental health conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Which
And
is a
legal
shame.
ones. I think alcohol does no good either.
No, it doesn't. No, I'm on about. I'm from Teesside, and there's a lot of drugs there. It's almost normal. There's doctors, solicitors, even police people take drugs regularly. So and I think it certainly revs a depressive side of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know this sounds very minor, but even if I have too much caffeine, I know this is totally like minor levels, but anxiety for me becomes like a problem. And, insomnia, which then leads to more anxiety. So, that's just caffeine, which is nothing really. I guess it's all about how people tolerate certain substances as well. They all have different effects on different people. But so generally speaking, has the medication helped?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I can't. Well, I'm lucky. I'm told I'm lucky. My best friend, his mum, is a really experienced mental health nurse. She was a ward manager for a long time, and so I get the odd bit of information, like just passing from him. And he said, Michael, people take decades to find the right drug or to find the right antipsychotic. However, you've hit it straight away. First one, you found it, and not just that, tolerated the side effects quite well. I mean, they are still tranquilizers, which people don't particularly understand. But
okay. So do you feel sleepy all the time?
No, but on a morning, you feel like you've had a good swill the night before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're strong.
Right.
They are strong. I mean, I can't be that numb because I write poetry, so
Exactly.
I still feel a fair bit.
It's an interesting dilemma. Do you think you'd write better poetry if you weren't medicated?
When I'm lucky, because my mood, I'm told, not all the time, but if it's anywhere, obviously it moves up and down. And sometimes it can move up and down over a period of minutes.
Right.
It can go through the full circle,
Without a trigger?
It's when the more acutely ill I am, the quicker the cycles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes I can cycle for. I worked, and this again with the insight, I was on the phone to a nurse once, and I looked at my phone. I'd been on the phone about 12 or 13 minutes, and I said, look at that, it's 12 minutes, and my mood's gone in a full cycle 4 times. And she was dead impressed that I'd worked that out. But yeah, I'd gone from tears to joy to rage to normal 4 times in 12 minutes.
Wow.
So, but I'm really looking after myself at the minute. So the worst thing I do is coffee and cigarettes.
Yeah.
I might treat myself to a couple of beers today. I'm not sure, but it's been a while. So.
And do you have to watch your diet as well in terms of what you eat?
Yeah. The medication makes you hungry.
Oh, okay.
However, I mean, I'm nearly 6'2", and I'm probably I'm 13 stone. I'm probably lighter than people who don't take my medication, let alone people who do take it. But that's a lot. That's neglect, to tell you the truth. I'm not particularly good at looking after myself.
Oh, just so busy.
Well, I can get myself in a shower, but I refuse to make myself toast. I'll get a takeaway once a day, or I'm a bit like a cat. I eat when I can.
Oh, I mean, we are conditioned to have the 3 meals a day. Sometimes people say you don't need them; you should just eat when you're hungry. But yeah, what's misunderstood about the condition?
This is it's a nightmare. This first and foremost, bipolar disorder and schizophrenia isn't split personality. Your personality changes, particularly with bipolar, because your mood changes. It's a bit like saying, Charlotte, today you came in a good mood, made everyone laugh, everyone enjoyed being around you, and then 3 days later you came in a bad mood. Well, that's just
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You weren't as much fun.
Yeah,
You were
but that's
snappy.
just life, is it?
So your personality is different on 2 different days. It's exactly the same with bipolar. Your personality changes, but you're not a split personality.
Okay,
you know?
right. That makes sense.
I don't know a great deal about split personalities, but I don't think they're sort of aware of each other.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where with bipolar, it's your mood that changes, more energy, less energy.
And you're aware of that as well.
But yeah. And the other thing is how monstrous people think we are. Now, I've been on wards, and you do get some pretty shifty characters, but that's when they're poorly. And you get some lovely people as well, some really, really nice people. Basically, so I'm told, maybe 100 years ago or a bit less, someone with my condition would just be sedated and pretty much left underground in a hospital, in a padded cell or something, classed as an outcast, buried in a peasant's way, with probably on the hospital grounds, just dug a hole, a very long time ago. And then obviously they were released into the community, and there was community nurses and things like that, which is great progress, and I'm lucky. However, I think someone told me, one of my nurses told me around about 1990, nobody was particularly scared of psychotics, so I'm told, until around about 1990. A chap did a shooting on a train platform in London, King's Cross, something like that. I think he killed a kid or something along them lines. It was violence and a murder, and there was no motive other than someone who just wanted to kill someone. It turned out this guy, I think he had schizophrenia or psychosis or something. And obviously the headlines got hold of it. So in terms of schizophrenia, it's a fact, especially in this country, that we're far more likely to be victims of either violence or, what's the word, being taken advantage of, far more than we are likely to be perpetrators.
Yeah, have you experienced that?
Yeah, but I don't mind, because I think that's more, I don't think that's necessarily because I have poor mental health or mental health difficulties. I think that's more because I'm quite good-hearted and tend to see a lot of people tell me I tend to see the good in people, which I'm proud of. My son's the same. He's going to be eaten alive, but I don't know.
I know my
I don't want him to
daughter's
change.
so soft and kind. Yeah.
But would you change it?
No, but you just worry for them going through life.
I mean, how old is she?
5.
Yeah, exactly. So we're round about the same with our kids there. So we haven't seen it move into secondary school yet, which is where.
Yeah, no, it is hard. Does your condition affect how you are as a father?
Yeah. I say yes. I'm more. I've been a father since I was 32, but I've had bipolar affective disorder since I was 16, so I don't know a difference. All I know is I'm a really good dad, and that's one thing I'm getting right in life, actually, being a dad. I think he's lucky to have a dad who's a bit odd and a bit different, and because we graffiti and things. Well, we have done. We seen a wall covered in graffiti, and it was a temporary wall. So we went out and luckily we both were wearing all black, and we did that for the crack. But we were all wearing black, put our hoods up, and bought some pens in the pavilion.
Yeah.
And then he did his squiggle. His squiggle looked great, by the way. He did a little art thing with his hood up, and I wrote a poem. And then even the council, the bin men, were parked up, and we never got in trouble. But the worst of it was his nana, my mum, came around the corner on a scooter. But I thought we were in trouble. But anyway, she just took a photograph of us. So yeah, it was. I wasn't really scared of the council. It was my mum I was scared of.
And yeah, do you have a good relationship with your mum? Has she been really understanding?
my mum's great. She's my best friend. In terms of behaviour, if I drink, I'm a really well-behaved drunk. But my mum's seen far too many, am I out to swear on here, shit blokes, specifically when it comes to alcohol. So she doesn't, if I don't drink, we have a great relationship.
Okay, right.
She does appreciate that I'm not like 90% of men when I drink.
Yeah.
But she doesn't like alcohol. And she not just that, she doesn't like what it does to my body. So.
Yeah, of course. In terms of speaking about your father, how was your relationship with your father growing up?
Well, I met him at 11. We sort of ran to the next town when I was 2. It was up and down. I mean, to this day, I absolutely adored my dad. There's a poem in Ink, my second book, called Tinker, and that's a good way of describing it. It's some type of lines like giving someone your heart 100 times and then dicing it up and giving it you back, and that quite often happened. I think he was really proud of me, looking back. I don't know if he ever said that, but he was one of them. He was a really bad drunk, and wherever we went, instantly he was introducing me to everyone, new players, and I seen that as a sort of maybe he was quite proud of me. But yeah, we were up and down. We didn't have a great relationship. We weren't speaking when he died.
Okay, so. Yeah, and you mentioned he died. He was murdered. How did that change your life? That's when I started writing, and that's when I started playing guitar. Interesting, because my brother, we didn't share the same dad. My brother thought my dad was the worst thing. He thought he was a complete bag of shit. But when he died, he said, will you come and... He lives in Stoke. He said, will you come and see me? I sometimes wonder why he didn't come and see me, in truth. Yeah. But, anyway, I got the train. And I didn't... My brother had always kept it up. He's quite a dark horse, my brother. But he kept it up his sleeve that he'd been playing guitar, and he was really good. And he played Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, and obviously it felt really spiritual. The goosebumps went up on the back of my neck, and he had a spare one kicking around with a bit of a snapped neck, and so when I got the train home, I took it back with me and learned to play. And things like that. I never saw myself playing guitar, writing. My mum said, Michael, when you were 14, if somebody told us you were going to be a poet, we'd have laughed at them. So that's getting back to the antisocial and being wrapped up in everything that was going on with my dad and things. But yeah, it was just something I enjoyed doing. And how did the bipolar side of things affect you when you were dealing with that intense grief of losing your father?
Again, I was diagnosed with bipolar at 16 and lost my dad at 22, so I don't know what bereavement's like without bipolar. I don't want to discredit anyone for their own grief, because I can imagine there's people without bipolar or any mental health condition that have felt far more grief, or the effects of grief far worse than I have with my father. I'm still far from over it, and it's been 15 years. But I would imagine it makes it a bit harder.
And what do you think happens when you die?
What do I think? I certainly believe in something. I've seen far too many strange occurrences, and specifically in York,
Oh, yes, that's meant to be quite a haunted area.
Yeah.
Could you tell us any?
Yeah, I mean, I lived there for 9 months. I worked in a restaurant which used to be Jamie Oliver's, but when I was working there, it was Tomahawk.
Right.
And I think it was table number 22, which was often my section. This could have just been in terms of engineering, the floor might have been slippy. But if you'd put a drink on 22, it would usually be the last table you would use in my section. But if you put a drink on 22, it would move towards the customer or fall off. But if you can imagine it going that way, let's say it was on a slant and fair dues, but it moved a bit funny. But there was once a tumbler, and they're quite heavy, and there was other witnesses that just jumped in front of us, smashed on the floor. And not far, I lived quite close to the city walls. And what's that pub called? Bit of a rock pub. It's on Nunnery Lane.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I forget what I call it, but I always used to feel a proper pinprick in my shoulder blade as I was walking past this pub and through the city walls.
Did other people as well, or just you?
I don't know. You don't. When you're from Teesside, you don't particularly go down well with the natives. And we've invaded the place every Saturday. We've invaded the place more than the Romans. But getting back, one more interesting thing. Again, it's just folklore. It's nothing I've experienced, but I'm told, I've got my own theory on this, because I'm told that every year, or every X amount of years, because of the dust from the living things, i.e. trees and people and animals, insects, on the earth gets an inch or a centimetre away from the core. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I know what you're going to say.
That's why it's cooled down enough for us to live.
But I think I know what you're going to say here, which is what?
I'm told there was a care home in Nunthorpe, and a lot of the dementia patients. And now I've got this thing where, as you're coming to the end of life, it's almost like you're seeing the beginning of the next life as well. Strange things.
No, I know what you mean.
But yeah, so there's a dementia care home somewhere in Nunthorpe, and according to the staff, there was quite a lot of patients would see Romans up from the waist.
Yeah.
So if you imagine, those Romans were still walking 2,000 years ago, and apparently there was a fort in Nunthorpe. I don't know if that's true, but if you can imagine, if there was something from the waist up, 2,000 years worth of dust would cover the legs,
Because it has a name, because I listened to the podcast Uncanny, I can't remember the name of it, but I knew you were going to mention that, and I'd never heard the dust theory before.
Oh, well, I made that up. So
oh, okay.
There you go. I've got a lot of these, I've coined quite a lot of things. It
makes sense, yeah, because you quite often hear of apparitions where you're seeing just parts of their body. There was someone who came on the podcast last year, or earlier this year, actually. It's been a long year. And I think they saw, someone from waist up on a staircase.
Oh, well, there you go. You've got my theory, and it's documented now. So.
Yeah. When I remember, I'll send you the details. I can't remember what it's called. It was something about some walls or something. Again, similar, like boundaries from back in the day that weren't there now. But it's just weird, though, isn't it? Stories are at the heart of the Personal podcast, and we're so grateful for everyone who comes on and shares them. Stories are also at the heart of a strong PR campaign. And at Harvey and Hugo, we believe that everyone's story deserves a chance to be heard. That's why we're on a mission to give you a voice amplified through the power of story. Our stories are shared in the form of press releases, social media, content marketing, videography, photography, animation, graphic design, and podcasting. Our stories aren't just heard, they're shared, watched, clicked, but most importantly, they are felt. It's this stirring of emotions that cuts through the noise to light fires within people and activate them towards your purpose. So one question for you. Are you ready to share your story? Harvey and Hugo, your voice amplified. Do you believe in reincarnation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, yeah. I don't... I have a feeling you're going to ask me about my religious stance. I sort of don't follow... I don't belong to any of it, but I don't... of all faiths, all the faiths I know, and I don't know a great deal about one of them. I know a little bit about a lot of them, but I don't neglect any of it. Does that make sense? I
It does
don't
make
belong
sense.
or follow any of them,
Yeah.
but I don't neglect any of them either.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I like what Ricky Gervais said. Isn't it a coincidence that you're always born into the right God? You know, like if you're born in Pakistan, you're going to be a Muslim. If you're born in America, you're likely going to be a denomination of Christianity.
Yeah.
If you're born in India, you're probably going to be a Hindu or a Sikh, or these days a Muslim. And do you understand? He's trying to say, what he's saying is this is what you're taught.
Yeah, exactly.
In
Culture and
things.
society.
But I'm heavily fearful. I've seen, put it this way, I've seen more, proof's not the right word, it's just jitters on my spine or serendipity. So it's not the word proof, but I've seen things. I certainly believe, I believe the Battle of Hastings was far more likely to have happened than there be a God in the sky, but God shown more of me, or some form of divinity has shown more of itself to me than Hastings. I never dug the shields up, I never dug the helmets up. I only know what I've been told and read about, you know.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
However, I've sort of felt some kind of divinity of some form, which still could be coincidence, but I don't particularly think it has been.
Yeah, you know, I feel similar things. There's so many coincidences that happen and things like that. But then you just think, is it just the mind? Is the mind more powerful than we can understand?
Yeah, well, another interesting thing, I saw someone going to a debate with Russell Brand, and I can't remember whose argument it was. I think it was the other chap's. And he said something along the line, and I think this is something everyone should bear in mind. What his point was is if imagine someone from this present day travelled. Imagine we took all this in time travel to the 4th century with the internet and the lights and the microphones and the television. We'd be burned at the stake for witchcraft. You take a laptop to the 4th century, it's just because they don't understand it yet.
Yeah.
So can you imagine how much things we don't understand? There's not necessarily a God there. Whatever serendipity is could be explained better in 200, 3,000 years.
Yeah, definitely. With everything that you've been through and what happened to your father, do you fear death?
Life's good at the minute, but if you'd have asked me that a fortnight ago, I'd probably spend 20% of my life welcoming death, to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah. Is that when you're having the bad episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not something I've acted on for at least 20 years. I don't hurt myself either, so... Well, if you class 8 pints of Guinness as hurting yourself, then I do.
Is that how you kind of deal with the down days?
Probably, if I was honest with myself... But if I was a little bit honest with myself and lied to myself a touch, I'd say that the first 4 to 5 pints, and they are to a degree, are there for me to write. That's what I love to do. I like to be around people that aren't interrupting me or bothering me or telling me anything. I don't particularly write about said people, but if there's risk and people and some form of chemical, mind-altering chemical, then I can write.
That stimulates the best kind of creativity for you.
For me personally. My friend's an incredible guitarist. He reckons he goes fishing to help him play guitar. And I said, do you think you need to go... I said, do you need fishing? Just because he's creative as well on a guitar, he's incredible. I wish he'd be a guitarist for me to do some spoken word, but he's shy. And he said, no, I need the lake. And it's interesting, I shouldn't really talk about him all the time. He gets a bit, I'm not telling you his name. But he's moved to the Lake District but it gets more interesting because every now and then he sees his own death in a dream, and he drowns in a lake.
Okay.
He jumps in to get something. He says, it's so real. He says, I know I would die. He says, it's me, but I'm a bit older. He says, I jump in to get something, and I'm really good. And in the end, I'm too far down to get up to save myself. So I just give in, and it's beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's one of my favourite people.
Yeah. And, what is your inspiration when you are writing? Is it deeper than the people around you?
I write about all kinds of things. I have a feeling in a short period of time you're going to ask me to read you one.
Yeah. Feel free to read me one now. If it's...
No, I'll read you one when you're ready.
Okay.
You're all right. I'll do as I'm told. So I write about all kinds of things. So I could be on a plane writing about being my this doesn't really answer the question, but I don't need to be in front of something to write about it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I can write about my mum while I'm completely the other side of the country from her, or I can write about anyone can. How do I explain this? If I was a painter and I wanted to paint this cup, I would move it out of the way and then paint it.
Okay, right,
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, and do you have to have experienced the things that you write about, or do you almost imagine certain situations?
Imagine, yeah.
Okay.
It's I like what my nephew said for his 10th birthday. He wanted 2 of my books. So I give him them, which is quite brave. Given it, I mean, my son is spoiled with language. I read him my stuff, other stuff, and kids' books. And everyone I buy signed copies of poetry because I know quite a lot of local writers and things. They all say I say, will you sign it for my son so I can read it to him? And I like to throw language on him. But yeah, it sounds stupid, but once upon a time it was all right. But now he's old enough to be too young for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
But it doesn't stop me.
Okay.
I still read some pretty devastating poems to him, I guess.
And yeah, some of them are quite dark, but then also some of them are quite light. Do you prefer writing about the dark stuff or the light stuff?
Well, if you look at the way I'm dressed, it says
mix.
Contrast. So I like. Sometimes there's 2 poems in one. I'll start about this and finish about something, and I can't really sum my work up as well as the reviewers can, or at least it makes sense to me when I read what they say. I'm hoping all these reviewers are really honest, genuine people, because people are going crazy for my work at the minute. But a lot of them say, you can see it's a fight within himself. That's not me referring to myself as a third person. The way they speak, the way they say it, it's a fight within himself, and you can feel a huge pause at the end where he's just left contemplating. I must say that is where I breached the line of vanity when it comes to reading my own reviews. I get excited.
I think that's
especially
normal.
when they're good.
When you are creating things, you don't know how it's going to be perceived. So it must be wonderful to hear positive reviews. And it is beautiful. There's even beauty in the darkness, sometimes more so, I think. Does solitude help you write?
Again, what do you class as solitude? Because I can write completely alone, undistracted, no music. I always type, don't always, most of the time, not so much these days actually, but type into my phone. But being undisturbed helps me write, but solitude doesn't. I need something happening.
That makes sense. So on your own in, say, a busy pub?
Somebody Somebody once said to me that if I was playing darts, they did a test on me. It was like a psychological or something. I'd be better at or shooting a rifle. I'd be better at shooting a rifle at a fairground where there was lots going on than I would shooting a rifle in the wild.
Okay, right.
You know, and I guess that's makes sense now because of the way I write. Again, I just go wandering, sit in pubs alone, and type up in the car. Everyone thinks I'm a police officer.
You might be. Don't want to break your cover. How did you discover that you enjoyed the writing process?
I was lucky because I throw the towel in at anything I'm not good at, which there's quite a lot of things I'm not good at. But because of the circumstances, the first poem I wrote, there you go with my grammar, was on the 14th of August, 2009.
Okay.
It was a month to the date after I found out my dad was murdered. And it was kind of, I wouldn't call it a suicide note, but it was certainly, there was contemplation there towards suicide. And my mum, I didn't even send it to her. I sent it to my auntie, my dad's sister, and her and my mum were close. And I sent it to an ex-girlfriend that was my first girlfriend. And my auntie, she's dead herself now, bless her. She must have sent it to my mum, who was downstairs.
Okay. And
she sort of used like a decent bit of psychology on me. She'd come upstairs and said that was a really good poem, and it wasn't bad, but it was shit, really. You know, like
compared to the level you're at now.
Yeah, well, it took me a while. You know, I would say I put it this way out. What I mean is, people lied to me, but it's helped me big time. And it's like the best lie to receive. People would tell me it was good in the beginning, and obviously people still say that now. It's not often people say it's bad, which some of them will be lying. But I feel as though almost everyone lied in the beginning because they knew it was good for me. Because you have to remember that out of those siblings that I grew up with, none of them had the same dad as me.
Right.
You know, so
you felt isolated almost.
Yeah. So they weren't grieving. Some of them will have been rubbing their hands together because he was a bit of a character, my daddy. Well, they won't have really. That was a lie, but but yeah. So.
But you must have had a talent, though. You know, I get that things improved through the years, but I don't think they'd have been lying that much.
You know, there's this thing, and I can align it more to people who play guitar. And I know a lot of really good musicians that get completely irritated when people say, "I'd love to be able to do that, but I haven't got a talent for it." And they don't see the thousands of hours.
True.
You know, and I wasn't employed for 2 years, and I walked around in a dressing gown, and what people didn't see was me not only doing the fun bit, the writing, but they just see me smoking a cigarette, making a cup of coffee, and spinning that over, but they didn't see me writing, they didn't see me liaising with publishers, they didn't see me editing, they didn't see me reaching out to reviewers. I was doing all that in the bedroom, you know, and it was like,
yeah, totally.
Does that make
it's like
sense?
the iceberg, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just see the tip of the success.
Yeah.
You don't see all the hard work.
Yeah, or they'd maybe even see me in the pub, but that was a bit like, I wasn't one of these like super annoying people who called the pub my office, you know, but I certainly didn't say it publicly. But that was where I did my bit, you know. Whether I was drinking or not, that would be where I'd go and park myself up and do my writing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do think that, you know, hard work can overcome talent. However, I think if you've got that talent, I mean, there'd be people that could spend years and years trying to write the poetry you do and just never get there. So, you know.
Oh, I hope you're right there. I know that's selfish of me.
No, I think it's right.
Well, yeah, I guess that's all I can say. I hope you're right, but But then I've seen, there's also closet writers that don't share. There's a girl in particular sending me a lot of poetry, and she's fantastic. But then I also remember a late night when we were late in bed together, and she was reading poetry out to me, and she was fantastic then, and that was about 10 years ago. So obviously she's written for decades, or at least a decade, and now she's starting to share. But then I also see people, and this is me being really big-headed, but I've got to say it. I get so many people out the blue who've never liked any of my poems, never commented. I never even knew anything. But then X amount of time at night or whatever, I'll get a poem from them. What do you think of this? I've just written it.
Interesting. And
I will say that if it is their first poem, which it quite often is, it was taking me 6 years to write on that level.
Okay.
They are, if that talent exists, then they're starting 6 years ahead of me. Not all of them, but I'd say most of them, to tell you the truth.
How many poems do you think you've written?
Thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you think
thousands.
you're addicted to writing poetry?
Yeah, I get poorly if I don't write.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah,
How
feel
many?
sick and ashamed.
Yeah.
Disgusted.
How many do you write a day?
Different. Sometimes I won't write if I go a fortnight, then it's like my skin's peeling.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll get 5 in a day. Usually about 1 or 2 a day, or one or two over 3 days. Anywhere, But yeah, I think the most I've written in a day is about 9.
Okay.
But I write fast.
Right.
I don't. It doesn't 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Just when you're in the flow.
I explain it, and I think it's starting to piss people off. It's spewing up onto a piece of paper.
And I am going to ask you to read a poem soon, but which one is your favourite that you've ever written, or is this the one you're going to read?
I've just told you I've got at least 1,000. So it's a bit like having 1,000 children. And it's bad enough that I could only bring one with me here. I don't know which is my favourite. I'm reading something that I written 10 years ago, which is risky. I like this poem because it's the first time I knew for myself that I'd written something good.
Okay, yeah.
Have I written? I don't. I always think it's subjective.
It is
subjective art.
Absolutely.
Subjective, and and half of them I don't even know what they're called. This one hasn't got a name.
Right.
I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to name it after the girl I've written it about. But
so does that almost come afterwards naming the title of the
almost
poem?
certainly.
Yeah.
I watched something about David Bowie the other day, and I can't remember the point he made, but he said artists always do the painting and then name it. And he was trying to make a point about some form of struggle. But yeah, I don't know. You might have the premise of an idea what you want to write about, but the name comes afterwards. And I really let myself down with my titles of the poems, yeah.
Right.
With my books at the minute, and I'm going to carry on trying to do it, I like one syllable.
Yes,
Dirt,
I've noticed.
ink, fog.
Yeah.
But the titles, they let them down.
Okay.
Lazy.
Well, the time has come for you to read one of your favourite poems, or the poem that you realised that you were actually good at it. Is that how you describe it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right, wish me luck.
Good luck.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
So we'll call it Danny. You promised to abuse me. I told you that you couldn't. You felt like you were strong. I showed you where you were weak. You asked to hear me speak, and I spoke some others' words. You spilled your spine in innocence. I pressed it with my palm. You never tried to stop me as I climbed the hill of your back. You tasted like a tart. You squelched like a slug. You panted like a pig. You fluttered like a flame. And next you started shuddering, in stiffness and in stealth. I thought your eyes would leave your skull, in brightness and in bliss. I thought your tongue had lost its voice in stillness and exorcism. Cat's eyes with nothing to them but a promise of a priggle. Cat's eyes that cannot blink, but mystery, magic and murder. Parts of you are painted, and for once I like the colour. You are not a masterpiece, but a piece for me to master. You tasted like a tart. You squelched like a slug. You panted like a pig. You fluttered like a flame. You stop again in stiffness and submitted to be still. A moth that caught its death in sweetness and in skill. You call for God, you call for Jesus, and you call for Jesus Christ. And then I wipe my mouth.
Interesting. And so, I mean, I think that's one of the probably easier ones to comprehend. Do you think about writing poetry when you are kind of essentially having sex or performing sexual acts?
I feel like I've started answering a lot of these questions and not managed to finish them, but maybe that's what I'm trying. Yeah, I don't think about poems while I'm having sex, no. But my nephew, as I was saying, asked for these books for Christmas for his birthday. And then when we went pumpkin picking, 20 days later, he said, "I like your books, Mick. They're all about beer and women." So that tends to be the theme.
Okay. Right.
However, they are about different things. There's far too many modern poets that write about the first love or the first broken heart, and they're completely typecast into just doing that, or funny poets. I'm glad there's funny poets out there, but they're not for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tend to write a lot about the sea.
Okay.
Or drowning in the sea, or landscapes. But from being a kid, that even as an antisocial, like I loved landscapes. I loved, to see a sunset or a horizon.
Yeah, I do.
So I write about the stars a lot, or the painting saints, which is your first one in your book, which I need to sign for you.
Oh, yes.
That's a cracker.
Yeah, I've read that one. I mean, there's so much beautiful poetry within the books. Where does the language come from? Because, talking to you now, you don't seem to use that language, but then it seems to just come out on the page.
What is the difference, I guess? So a lot of people say that there's no pretense to me when they interview me.
Yeah. You'd almost expect that sort of language to come out when you're speaking.
No, I don't know which is the real me, basically.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I want to be, that I want to last forever. And I won't. But does this answer your question? Does this give you the answer that you anticipated if I was to say that I'm a very down-to-earth person?
Yeah.
Or not? And the words are a bit more...
A little bit.
Or not?
A little bit. The words are just so different, and they're not everyday language. And if for someone to write like that, I would think that they would talk like that, which, there's two very different things. So maybe it's it's clearly an incorrect assumption, but it's just,
Well, I mean, this is possibly getting it completely wrong, but there's a good... I live, eat and sleep poetry. And I'm going to have to just admit this. I'm also self-obsessed. I'm also very good at putting people before me. But I think about myself a lot, and that's a shocking thing to admit. But
I
probably
think a lot
everyone,
of people do.
Exactly, and probably everyone's similar. However, I wonder if these. I mean, usually I'm joggy bottoms and a hoodie.
So am I.
Yeah. So this is me. I sometimes put a nice pair of jeans on and a t-shirt on that's older than my son.
Yeah.
You know, that's me making an effort. What I'm trying to say is, I'm 37. I wonder if people who walk around in berets, that's because I used to wear a beret myself 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But I wonder if maybe that's an insecurity into their own work.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, possibly, maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
they sleep and live and breathe poetry just as much as me, and they're really happy with their own work.
Yeah.
I also think berets look mint, by the way. So, yeah, especially on women.
Oh, I've never tried one on, I don't think.
Oh, I think it'd suit you with your dress.
Okay,
Look good.
right.
Black one.
I'll add it to my Christmas list.
Yeah.
Michael, you've been brilliant. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
so
honesty.
much, Charlotte. Yeah.
We've just got the regular feature to go.
Oh, yeah, of
On a scale
course,
of
I
1 to
forgot
10,
about this.
1 being the worst, 10 being the best, can you rate yourself at the following 10 things?
1.
1, how good looking are you?
7.
Okay.
Is that fair? Until I open my mouth.
It's
and
all
you see my
about what
teeth?
you think.
Yeah?
I'm not
Right,
going to comment.
now
I
then.
never get involved.
You remain impartial.
How funny are you?
8.
How good at cooking are you?
3.
How good at singing are you?
I went to shout shite there. Actually 4. I'm not bad if I can hide behind a guitar. I'm not 3 or 4.
Okay. Drinking alcohol?
If you'd have asked me that a year ago, 11. I'd still probably say 8
Okay.
because I'm a professional. I don't get in trouble.
Okay. Raising children? Raising your son?
9.
Oh, lovely. How good a friend are you?
8 or
Okay.
9. 8.
Intelligence levels?
If anyone I know is watching this, I'm fed up with telling people I'm nowhere near as intelligent as they think I am. But I'd still probably say maybe 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
People tend to think I'm an 11.
Well, I can see why, reading your poetry.
I'm a blagger.
How kind are you?
10.
Lovely. And I know you don't mind talking about this after that poem. How good at sex are you?
I've never had sex with myself. There's probably a handful of times when I've scored anywhere between 14 and 20 for that answer. I've had a lot of women break the back to tell me I was good. Let's
Danny
say
sounds
8.
like she enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm a bit past my best now. I'm 37, but I'd say 8.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much, Michael.
Thank you. Cheers.